It's on, but it's on. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. Quorum being present of the school board here, I'll call this special meeting to order. And before we go any further, I'll turn it over to Dr. Spence. He's got some information and comments, and then I'll get into what we're going to do tonight.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gum. Just going over the agenda tonight, we have some clarifications from the January meeting, data that we'll share with you from the survey that we put out, the discussion, and then comments from guests, and Mr. Gum will go over kind of how that will look like in a moment. So a couple of clarifications. Unrestricted fund balance came up in January. That is actually at 19%, not 13.8 that was reported. The auditor will be here in February to explain that in further detail, but that did kind of muddy the waters a little bit on our conversation, so I just wanted to put that out there that our fund balance is at 19% and our goal is at 20%. The calendar should not be a financial decision, so again, I'm afraid that kind of muddied the water because we did the audit and talking about the budget, and then the calendar came up. Those are unrelated, and the calendar is a very important decision, but it's not necessarily a financial decision. And then the calendar versus the schedule, I've heard a lot about that in the last couple of weeks, and just want to kind of clarify that the calendar is a board decision, and the board will vote on your calendar for next year. The schedule is an administrative decision by building, and the administration will discuss what schedule works best with whatever calendar is chosen, and do that in the best interest of our kids and our teachers. And then we'll take board action in February. This is strictly for discussion and to hear your thoughts. This is a map just of current four-day schools in the state of Missouri. And again, my intention to bringing this to the board was the fact that it is a growing trend among Missouri, especially in our area, where we potentially could have 75% of the SCA operating on a four-day week or some hybrid of it next school year. So something that should be considered, and we are considering that. These are the survey results that we took. This is the overall, and I'll leave that stat up there probably. I know that's the one you can see the best. 494 responses, 60% supportive, 8% neutral, and 31% opposed. That's overall everybody that took the survey. Sorry, this is a little small, but I'll go over it with you. The parent responses, we had 195 parent responses. Of those parents, 52.82% were supportive, 37.95% opposed, 9.23% were neutral. Willow Springs staff responses, 128 responses, 82.81% supportive, 9.38% opposed, 7.81% neutral. Community responses, we had 115 community responses. Supportive, 35.71% opposed, and 5.36% neutral. Lots and lots of comments on those surveys, and the board was given all those responses. That is what I have, Mr. Gum, and I will turn it back to you.
All right. First, I want to kind of clear the air. There's been some comments about thinking that we tried to push this through without getting input from the public, et cetera. And just to be real clear about how that happened, and I take full responsibility, but Marty had it on the agenda, and I think it was wishful thinking on his part that we might be able to take action on it and have a calendar set so that he could have more than enough, plenty of time to start planning if there was a big change in the calendar. Well, I knew that there was no way that was going to come to a vote, and I should have had him remove that from the agenda as it was, but I didn't. And like I said, I take the hit for that. So, enough said on that. We're here tonight to hear from those that have opinions on the possibility of changing from our traditional schedule to a hybrid calendar similar to a 4-day school week like a lot of other schools have gone to. It's clear from looking at survey responses and comments that there are strong feelings on both ends of the spectrum. And people are very passionate about how they feel about this. And I appreciate that, because that means they're concerned about their kids, the kids that are in our school, and other kids. So I appreciate that there are strong feelings, and people are certainly entitled to those. But obviously, we're not going to make everybody happy with whatever decision we make in February at our February board meeting. So what I ask of you tonight is in your comments to be respectful of others. Please don't interrupt anyone who has the floor. And I ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Now, if somebody has a problem with that, maybe we can work on that, but I think 3 minutes is probably more than enough time. And that will allow everyone that wants to speak an opportunity to speak. So we would like to hear from everyone that has an opinion on this topic, and we want to do it in an orderly fashion. But before we get started, I think maybe we can start with something we all agree on. Go Chiefs. But from that point, the floor is now open for anyone who would like to make a comment to the board.
You'll come to the podium.
Yes, at the podium right here. I mean, I would assume maybe that many, or if not all of you, have already registered your comments on the survey, so perhaps that's why you're not jumping up and running up here to the podium. But we would like to hear from you.
I have a question, and this
Come on up, Jenny. Well, sorry.
So this is just a question that I had that came up whenever I saw the results. I'm a parent of a high schooler, and I'm a secretary at the high schooler. Could I have filled out the survey twice, once as a parent and once as an employee? So to me, I mean, the percentages are just a smidge skewed because we've got a lot of parent/employees here. That's just me. That's just my 2 cents. I filled mine out as support staff. That's just how I did it.
Sure.
I wanted to make sure that it was looked at, and I wanted to make sure that it was taken into account. I emailed all of you guys. You all know my thoughts and feelings. If you don't, or if you didn't see my email, give me your personal email and I will send it to you. I sent it to your school emails. I have some serious concerns. And again, like I said, I was just curious about how I could have done the survey, and also if you guys need to know my thoughts and concerns, I'll give them to you.
I read your email, and I appreciate every point that you made. And so I don't know how you could have done it twice.
Yeah.
I don't think, I'm speaking for myself here, not the rest of the board, but I don't think our vote will probably be decided by a majority, whatever is on the survey.
Okay.
We have to weigh everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You could have done it one or the other, but it wouldn't have logged it for both.
Well, that's kind of what I thought. That's why I didn't do it twice, one, and also I think that's just wrong.
Sure.
And I read several comments where someone was a staff person, but they were also a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So they made that clear. And so
yeah.
that kind of identified that they were coming from, both
Both
perspectives.
sides. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, I've opened it up for you guys.
Hi, I hate speaking in front of people. I just want to make it known I have a child that has special needs, and it is very difficult for him to get the amount of learning in 5 days as opposed to 4 days. And I have another child that's borderline struggling in school. The days are long. She's in 2nd grade. She's also struggling, and it would put a financial, you know, as far as we both work, my husband and I both work 40 hours a week, and we're having to come up with extra daycare, and it's just, there's several reasons why we're strongly opposed. I just wanted to make that known.
Thank you. And those are certainly issues that we have all seen and will be addressed.
I am just concerned that this is being looked at just as a teaching, you know, situation or whatnot. I don't know all of the dates and whatever, but here pretty soon the kids are going to have a choice of what district they can go to. I believe it's next year, but don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure. And with Willow having the senior project, I fear that our enrollment that is already down, I fear that we would lose more of our high schoolers. And if we step on this, you know, 4-day type thing now, we may get more of the rural groups, you know, the rural schools kids that maybe the other schools, you know, because West Plains is not a 4-day. They do have a Friday every week. They take off early on Fridays. The kids do, because the teachers do like a PD time at the end of Fridays. So they leave, I believe it's either an hour and a half before regular let-out time every Friday. So they're already doing something a little different too with their schedules. But, you know, I'm just worried that the enrollment that's already down is gonna still, you know, get affected maybe in a negative way. And if we, you know, maybe do some kind of different type schedule and stuff, we may attract more students, so.
Okay, thank you. Good point. I don't think I'd seen that or heard that comment. Who's next? He noticed who spoke last.
So my concern is, we are looking at this, or the impression I'm getting at, that we are looking at this for student or teacher retention. I would like to see facts for that. You know, why are we losing teachers? Because a lot of the teachers I've talked to went to 5-day schools after leaving here. So I feel like we need to have something in place where we're finding out why are we losing them and what other ways can we work on keeping them instead of just the schedule change. Sorry. But that's my 2 cents.
And I'll just comment that we don't know, because we haven't done the 4-day week, about if this is going to retain teachers or not. So we don't have any data along that line. And we're not in a position where we have been losing teachers at a large rate. So, but anyway, I understand what you're saying. So we really don't have that.
Yeah, we don't have the
No.
data to see about our schedule if we continue to lose them, but are we finding out why they are leaving, is my question and concern with that. Because if they're not leaving because of a 4-day week, then what other issues do we need to look at to try to keep them, or, you know, get more attraction of more
Right.
teachers, so.
Good point. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, we're going to hear from a student. Good. Yes.
I don't need your pity.
You can raise that microphone up.
Do we know why we're adjusting the schedule again?
Do we know why we're
Why we're changing the schedule? Every year there's,
changing the calendar?
yeah, the calendar, not the schedule, sorry.
Okay, we haven't changed the calendar. We're considering a change in the calendar.
Then why are we considering a change?
The primary reasons are that neighboring schools have gone to similar schedules, and it's a way of recruiting teachers, because teachers favor a 4-day calendar.
Is there proof to back that up?
I think there is, yes. I can't provide you that data.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Good point. If any of you board members have a comment, whenever I respond, feel free to speak up.
Heard from the student, now you're going to hear from a mama. It's my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, since 2010, there are still only 20 to 25% of the schools in the state of Missouri who have gone to a 4-day week. Is that correct?
It's over a third.
Over a third now? Well, it seems to me like, isn't the bigger issue, we talk about retaining teachers, getting teachers, but it seems to me the bigger issue is the pay for the teachers. We're second to last in teacher salaries, and if you try to get teachers to come, we have a lack of housing, and even bigger, we have a big lack of spousal employment. They don't want to come where there's no place for their husband or their wife to work. And then there's socialization. They want a place to go do something. We don't have that. So it's not just, I don't think, working 5 days a week that's keeping them from coming to our system. I did a little research this afternoon, and I found something from Emily Morton, who is a pretty well-known researcher, and Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming. Those are kind of, in a sense, rural type states. And they found that 4-day students as a whole made less progress in reading than 5-day students, according to the spring MAP testing. That was in the Economics of Education Review in June 2024. Emily Morton said she would not recommend a 4-day week. If your main goal is saving money, boosting attendance, or recruiting and retaining teachers, research does not provide much support for that, for the argument that 4-day weeks are delivering the intended benefits. So how do we address a big issue to me is our community as a whole. I'm not sure a 4-day week. One of these speakers just said that some of these folks left, they went to 5-day-a-week systems. So I think we have a lot bigger issues and I'm not sure the school can address employment, etc. But it's something to think about. I'm not sure just having a 4-day school week is going to be the plan that improves. And is there research, do you know what the increase or decrease in student testing in some of these schools that have gone to a 4-day week? Do we, as Willow Springs, do we know what their results are?
DESE did a study in the state of Missouri and showed no discernible increase or decrease in academics. That was their findings.
That's their finding. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Graves, who was that, and what was the first name on that Morton research?
I think it's Emily, but let me double check. Emily Morton.
Okay.
She's a researcher for the National Center for Analysis of Longitudinal Data in Educational Research, otherwise known as Calder.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Like Jenny, I bring kind of a twofold perspective. I'm a teacher, of course, but I'm also a parent, and those two are absolutely tied together, and both of them have to do with Willow Springs Schools. The reason my wife and I teach in Willow Springs Schools is because we wanted our children to go to school here. We did not want them to go where they were zoned. So that was our main motivation for coming here. Give you further background on myself, I have taught 2 different states, a couple different systems, so I think I've got a pretty varied view of education. I've taught in high schools with as many as 2,000 students in that high school, and then of course I've taught here, and so we know the demographics here. I say all that to say this, Willow Springs Schools are the absolutely best schools that I've ever been exposed to. As a school district, we should be proud of that. And it didn't take me very long to recognize that, and that's why I wanted my daughters to come here. You will not find a much bigger fan of Willow Springs Schools than the Spencer family. One thing I am concerned about is it's easy to fall into a we, them mentality. We teachers, them students, we staff, them school board. I think it's important to understand that teachers, school board, I honestly don't believe that you don't have the best interests of students at heart. School board, staff, parents. If you don't have that at heart, you're in the wrong place. I do think that sometimes there is a little bit of a lack of understanding, but we're not in the business of schedules. We're not even in the business of budgets. We're in the business of people. That's what we're about. And that's what makes Willow Springs Schools so great. It's the people that are here. That's what makes it great. And when we lose sight of that, we lose sight of the whole purpose. And so we've got to keep that in mind. Like some of the others that have spoken, I believe 100% that education is an honorable profession, but I see that it is sometimes no longer an honored profession. We look at 4-day schools, and please don't necessarily take this as an endorsement one way or the other, but we're looking at teachers just as an excuse to do less, but I present to you the teachers are doing more now than they have ever done with distance learning and all of it that's involved. They're doing more, and they do it without question. They can adapt to a lack of funds, they can adapt to a lack of resources, but what they cannot adapt to is a lack of respect. And I think it's important to understand that we have people that care about the students of Willow Springs. And your teachers will do everything within their power as long as they feel like they're supported. They ask, why do people leave? And it's amazing. As me, I look in the mirror and I realize my hair is a lot thinner and it's a lot grayer than it used to be. And so I'm closer to the rule of 80 than I am the beginning. And I look around and I realize there's a lot in that same boat, and it terrifies me. Who's coming after us? And so I've done some research into why the teaching numbers are down. And the number one reason that people leave education, believe it or not, it's not necessarily the lack of money. They know they're not going to get rich going into it. It's not those things. It's they feel like they are not supported. And that's why people leave education. And so I think it's important, teachers, we need to support the school board, we need to support administration, we need to support the community, but vice versa, we need the community to support us. I just felt it important to let you know, I'm worried about the future of Willow Springs Schools because there's districts around us that don't have those teachers that are certified, and they're not really qualified to be in the classroom. And the best thing that we can do for our student is to put them constantly in contact with highly qualified educators that care about them. And as long as you can put those highly qualified educators that care about them, they will move heaven and earth to make sure that their students are provided for.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. The floor is open.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Kathy. I am an employee here at school. I want to debunk some of the stuff that has already been said. Not everybody that leaves this school district leaves for a 5-day school. My daughter was employed here and had the opportunity to teach, and she is at Mountain Grove, who is in a 4-day/hybrid schedule. There are other teachers who are at Kabul, and they have a 4-day. So not everybody leaves for a 5-day week. So I just wanted to point that out. I also wanted to say, before I say this, I understand that you want the opinion of the community, but my husband, he works at Coastal, and I guarantee that if they wanted to change their work week to a 4-day, they wouldn't be asking the opinions of the community. They would be asking, Mr. Montgomery would be asking his management team. And so I think it is important that, I'm glad you guys are asking, but for people who don't work in the school, it's hard to accept their opinions when they don't know what teachers go through every day. For my 4th grade team, we came up with this earlier today, and we came up with several pros and a few cons, and a myth that we wanted to state a fact for. There were several comments on Facebook that think that teachers just want to work less, or that teachers want to be lazy, and that's not true. As I'm just speaking for my 4th grade team, but I know a lot of elementary teachers work well over 50 to 60 hours a week. And that's not just in the classroom, but that's also at home where they're grading papers, they're working on curriculum, they're finding ways to better their teaching in the classroom. And so we're working above the allotted 40 hours that we are required to be at school right now, which is 7:30 to 3:30. And so we are working above that, and we are working hard, and we work because we love kids, and that's why we're here. Some pros that we had come up with is, ever since the mention of the schedule, we have been coming up as a 4th grade team, ways that we can use this time, and we have found extra time, if we go with this schedule, that we could work on math more. We were able to find where we are making our mistakes and making them better. And so we've been able to find extra time. Teachers, students, and the staff would be able to use Mondays for doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, or therapy appointments, whatever that may be. We're often told that there is a sub shortage, which this would increase our attendance at school, and hopefully it is more important to have the teacher in the classroom than it is a sub. And so hopefully that would be a better way to help with our kids. Mondays could be used, we were thinking about this today, Mondays could be used for homebound instruction, for tutoring, meetings, clubs, getting caught up on grading and lesson planning. So I guarantee you it's not just going to be a day for everybody to sleep in and hang out in their jammies. They're going to be working on something and working on a way that they can help kids. Mondays that we will miss will be used, some of those days I'm sure will be used as PD days. Our data days, which are vital for us to discuss student achievements, movement between the tiers, necessary map prep and digging into our standards. And so we could use those days for that, which would save the district some money too, because each time we have a data day, for 2 of those, we have 3, for 2 of those, it would require a sub of some sort, or at least one of them. I know January's did. Other school districts in the SCA, their MAP scores are much better than some of ours that have been reported. And so our standardized tests with other districts, they are scoring higher, and they're in a 4-day or a hybrid schedule. One was mentioned, mental health for teachers and students. We feel that students and teachers would feel less stretched thin by the end of the week. A con, we did mention some things about the food bags, that was a concern, but I know that Convoy of Hope has been helping out in several areas, and so I'm sure that some of those food bags could be tripled up, for an extra day. We were thinking of some other ways. We were trying to figure out if maybe the YMCA could be involved in some activities on that Monday. I know that a lot of high school students work there, or some do, and since, if we would be off that day, they could use that for some activities for those kids. So, because I don't want people to think that we could be used as a daycare. I know that that's been a concern on some Facebook posts, that who's going to babysit my kid, and we're not just babysitters, we're educators, and we would be working with kids and doing things that would benefit them, and maybe the YMCA could get involved with some of those activities on Mondays. I already mentioned that teachers aren't working less, we'll be working more. We already do. Hopefully, I've spoke well for most of the elementary. I know I did for my team, so, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Picard.
First of all, I am not a classroom teacher. I'm a paraprofessional and have been for several years now, and I've subbed in this school many years. All my children went to school here, and got a good education. I feel like we have the best teachers, and I love working with them. I love being in this school district. And I'll be honest, part of me is like, why do we have to change things? And I'm just being honest. But change is hard. And I guess I feel like, my kids turned out pretty good. All of us turned out pretty good. I didn't go to school here, but I know what we're all here for is for kids. And I don't know if there are necessarily statistics that show what is best for educating kids or whatever, because I'm all for what would be best. If it's a 5-day week, a 4-day week, a 3-day week. I don't like to hear when there's negativity as far as being said that, they just want a day off, whoever it is, whatever they're into, because that's not the case. Until you've walked a day in someone's shoes, you don't really know what they go through and what they do every day. Because a teacher doesn't just teach math or science or English or social studies or whatever. You have to be a counselor. You have to be someone that listens. You have to tie a shoe, wipe a nose, clean your hands several times a day after doing all those things. And you have to love like they're your children. And I worry about the kids that tell me or tell other people, I don't want a day off. They don't like spring break. They don't like Christmas break. They don't like snow days. I mean, who doesn't like a snow day? Most everybody does. But I'm just telling you, there are kids that this is their refuge. And I'm not saying, no, it's not our responsibility to parent, to daycare, and all that stuff. But just please, please, please make them the priority. And I do think, yes, Monday could be used. That could be used for those appointments so kids wouldn't have to miss school through the week. So teachers could do their appointments, because there's times you can't just get everything done on your days off or whatever, and you only have so many days. And you feel like as a teacher, when you leave, you've got more work when you come back. It's like sometimes you feel like it's not even worth being gone because, you know, you have to make up for it. So I'm not saying one way or the other. I did fill my survey out as a staff, and I did list all my, you know, concerns. But at the end of the day, people want to know you have their best interests at heart, whether it's definitely the students, the teachers, the staff. I trust that we will put the kids' needs first. I do want us to remember our teachers work very hard. They're not taking this decision lightly. And I'm sure everybody has different opinions, and you're not going to make everybody happy. I mean, you're just not going to. But I guess that's it. So.
Thank you, Cassie.
This is the last thing that I probably want to be doing ever, but I come from probably a different perspective because I do work in a school district that follows this hybrid model. And I think we keep on talking about 4-day, but we need to remember it's a hybrid. And there's a lot of Mondays in the calendar that's proposed, first of all. And also, I should say I'm a parent in this district. And I graduated from here, so I love this district, and I'm happy for my kids to go here. I do think there's a lot of things to think about with the 4-day week, and when my district started this whole process, I was very much what Cassie said, goodness, why are we changing things? Like, it's been working fine forever. And I was probably opposed to it as well because I also work in special education, so I'm thinking, where are my students getting fed on that day? Like, who's loving them? Do they have heat? And all of those things. But I will tell you, in the district I work for, rarely is there a Monday that some sort of enrichment is not offered. There's opportunities for students not to be at school for daycare, but for more one-on-one instruction if they need it, because the teachers are always there. They are always there, whether they're doing career ladder or just because they love their kids. I would say there is a rare Monday that somebody is not in that building, and that kids aren't welcome in the building. And so I think that's something that's really important to think about. You know, I mentioned that I was concerned for my students, like, where are they getting their food on this extra day? I know our district sends home with different grants and funds, and I know it's similar here, that there's so many support systems there, food bags sent home, Convoy of Hope, things have been mentioned, and I'm not gonna stand up here and promise to, or tell you I have hard data to support any of this, but it's working. and our attendance in the Mountain View School District has increased overall. Discipline problems have decreased. And again, it's not that I have like hard facts to support it. I work in it every day. And I will also say that as an employee, you see that side of it, and you hear, you know, teachers just want an extra day off. Teachers want an extra day off. But I will tell you that I work harder in those 4 days than I did on a daily basis on the 5-day, because there's stuff that has to be done. Kids have to be seen, and you work hard and you get it done, and the extra fluff is gone. You know, we're not coloring. We're not doing any of that extra time filling type stuff, and it doesn't leave room for kids to have opportunities to have extra discipline problems, which is nice. They stay busy and they're focused, and I think that's really important. My child so far, I mean, he's only a first grader. He's had fantastic teachers thus far. I would never say that it's not a fantastic school district. I want my kids to be here. I just hope that moving forward, I think that there have been lots of issues presented. People have lots of concerns. But at the end of the day, I don't think Dr. Spence would present this as an option if he didn't believe in it, if he didn't feel like it was a solution to some of the issues we're facing in the district or in our community. And I think as our superintendent, we need to trust that. And, you know, this strung on the polls and the community forums for 3 years prior to them moving to the hybrid calendar in Mountain View, and we were constantly having to do polls. And when they finally, you know, made the move, I think everybody has been pretty happy with it. And I know it puts a child care burden. I'm sure there would still be some people that aren't happy. There's always going to be people that aren't happy, but I just think you have to think about how we're engaging our students, and is their time being well spent here, and what we're asking of them. You know, however many years ago in kindergarten we were taking naps. You know, now we're learning sound letter correspondence in preschool. Like, so much more is being expected of our students that they have to be focused, and when they're not focused, it's more discipline problems. And I think that's something that's not really considered or hasn't been brought up thus far. I think that the Willow Springs District does a great job. I think the rigor is high. I think times are changing. Teachers have to be teacher, mom, counselor, snack provider, nose wiper, all the things. And that's the world we live in now, and I think that this is just a step in the direction that education's going. So I hope that, all things considered, it is more than just people thinking that teachers want that extra day off, because having a teacher in the classroom instead of a sub, because they did have that opportunity to do some of their stuff on a Monday, or they did have the opportunity to take care of themselves or their family, that makes a huge difference. So,
Thank you, Lindsay.
Discussion has been about the family or the kids with troubled homes in the elementary school, middle school. But as a high school student, it's also important to look at the high schoolers who come from troubled homes. A lot of my peers work to support themselves because they don't have good families, they don't have good parents. And that Monday would give them an extra day to work and support themselves. I'm not necessarily for or against the hybrid calendar, that's just an important point to consider, that a lot of kids have to work to support themselves, and that Monday would give them a day to catch up and do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to bring a little bit different perspective to the conversation. So having been a graduate of Willow Springs High School, I think back to my education. I had a lot of great teachers. I would say that as a student, I wasn't always the greatest of students, and I was probably the 75% of students that was the C average. So when I went to college, only through a basketball scholarship, not to go to college, just to play basketball in college, I was at a significant disadvantage. And I was very far behind peers, and I barely got into the basics of class. Fast forward 30 years from now, having been an employer and a hirer of students, people with education, people without education, people in various settings of industry, and now owning a business here in Willow Springs, I think there is continued work to do with our students and how they graduate from Willow Springs High School. We have employees that have a basic level of inability to read. When we digitized the pizza place and put computer screens, some of them have a difficulty understanding what they're trying to make from a basic pizza perspective. That's important because I think that one size may not fit all from a hybrid perspective. I know a lot of discussion was had at the board meeting about what about block scheduling and a 4-day or a hybrid school schedule when those students miss multiple days of education because they have afternoon athletics or other things that take them out of the classroom. I think that we need to make sure that we are focused on the standardized testing and what is giving the students the best education possible at the different levels of the grades, and that may not be the same. So what works for high school may not work for middle school, which may not work for elementary school. And so I just think that I employ a lot of the high school students at the moment, and they have great things to say about school and some not so great things to say about school. And so I really think that we do have students that are lacking coming out into the workforce, and they're missing some basics. So my only thought process is that we should really maybe focus on where our kids are at from an education perspective. How are they on the standardized testing? And maybe they are getting phenomenal education at a certain grade level, and then they're getting into high school and we're going to block scheduling or other things, and they're starting to fall behind or miss out on an education perspective. But I do a lot of remediation activities with my school students that I employ because they're not exposed to certain things that they would need in the business world. And we have a lot of students that graduate high school and are expected to go get a job. And in high school, they get a job, or as soon as they can actually be employed. So I just think that it's probably something that needs to be looked at from a trend, but there is a lot of research. As Ms. Graves said, there is a lot of research that shows no difference one way or the other, but there is a lot of research that shows in the rural communities that scores actually go lower from that perspective. And so we just need to make sure we're comparing ourselves apples to apples versus big city schools that go versus rural schools that go. And I'm sure that from an education perspective, the teachers are doing an absolutely phenomenal job. And that I hate that this is even a teacher versus student versus administrative versus a board, because I think that forgets, maybe it leads us down a wrong path. We just need to step back and see what the best education is for this rural area and how are we going to accomplish that. So I'm still not sure, and maybe the survey responses you guys see are telling that picture, what the other feedback is, but I still haven't seen a lot of data that supports exactly what we're going to accomplish from a block scheduling and from a school system perspective, and how we're going to continue to make sure we've got high school students that can go, work out in the real world or get a job at one of these manufacturing. Luckily, we have some good places in town, but I'm not seeing it with the current students that we're employing sometimes, so they're pretty far behind. So.
Thank you, Lori.
So one thing I haven't heard addressed yet is, with athletics in mind, if we go to a 4-day week, will sports schedules still be 5-day a week? Practices, I would assume most of the other schools are still doing practices 5 days a week. Why is that? If anytime I hear about athletics, Coach Colley, did they always talk about the minimum days that you could have students or the maximum days that you could be with your athletes? It's always a maximum. Coaches are allowed only this amount of days. Why is it when we talk about education, we always talk about the minimum amount of days or hours? If the state comes back and says, now we're going to only the minimum amount of education hours that you have to be in school is 9, what do we do, 1,080 some hours now, is that right, Marty?
1,062.
Okay, what if they come back and say, oh, the minimum's now 900? Are we just going to keep rolling back to the minimum? If we want a quality education, why don't we look at the maximum? What's the maximum amount of hours that we can have students in school? Nobody ever talks about that. We just talk about the maximum amount of hours that we can have kids for sports. Let's put the education first in front of sports. We want them at ball practice over and over and over. We want them on 5 days a week. We want them at summer camps. We want them any time that a coach can get a hold of them. That's because we want to practice, 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 and get better. Why don't we practice, practice, practice in the classroom more and more days? To me, that's where I think we get better, is by having those students in the seats. The students aren't going to learn when we close the doors to the school.
Thank you, Tony. Next. Your last call here.
Oh.
Hey, Toby.
How many official day Mondays, or were we talking, was it 14 that they would miss? Isn't that what? Is, I can't, I was at the meeting, but I want to say it was 14. So, I mean, I know, to me, I mean, as a parent, 14 days is not that many days for them to not be in school. That's just me. You know, I always had my girls, they're an well, Cassidy was a huge athlete. Toby is my book girl. So I won't say book nerd, but you know, she's more on the academic side. I always made sure Cass took her core classes in the mornings, because then that way when she left school in the afternoon for her sports, she had her core classes done for the day. So counselors, you know, could work great with the kids to be like, okay, you got to get in. All these are only in the mornings, so you can't miss those classes. You know, I do agree with you on kids really need to learn more about real life. You know, I remember when I was in high school, we had Mr. Haney taught some, I don't know, bookkeeping class. I mean, you know, it was fun because it was Mr. Haney. But, you know, we enjoyed that class, learning how to write a check. I mean, I don't even think kids even know how to write a check anymore. I work in HR at the nursing home, and the other day I had a person, you know, we have to do direct deposit now for all of your checks. And they put their debit card number instead of their checking account number. You know, and so then whenever their direct deposit didn't go through, they're like, "What? Where's my money?" And I'm like, well, did you put your account number in? Well, yeah, I put my number from my debit card. So, I mean, there's things that these kids are not gleaning about real life that I feel like they need to work on. You know, I am big on, we need more Jesus in the school. I know that is like a big no-no to a lot of people, but I got SWATs when I was in school, and I respected my teachers. You know, Mr. Joyner gave me SWATs one day because Kenneth and I would not shut up in class. And so I had a skirt on, had to come back the next day to class and get my SWATs. So, you know, I mean, you learn to respect your teachers. These kids these days don't respect teachers. I taught middle school at Pomona Christian for years on Wednesday nights, and I adored my middle schoolers. Fast forward now, tried to help out at Crossway for a while with Mrs. Walton, with the middle schoolers. I stepped out. I said, I can't do these kids anymore. They have absolutely no respect for anyone. They are just coming to play. They are not learning anything. So I feel like a lot of it, I mean, kudos to teachers, because you guys have it hard. Kids don't respect the teachers anymore. Whether this will help, having that extra little time or not, but I mean, if it is just 14 days, it's just 14 days. And if that gives the kids time to relax and maybe get to school and have that extra, you know, one-on-one with the teacher, then that's great to me.
Thank you.
Are you saying bring back SWATs?
Yeah, okay.
No comment.
I apologize. I missed the first half of the meeting. I do teach music lessons in Kabul after school on Mondays. But so some of this stuff, just some thoughts might have already been shared, but I'm going to share because it's me. So before this, I was 6 years in Summersville, Missouri, and teaching in the public schools there. One, Dr. Johnson recruited me here. So you can thank him for the good and the bad, I guess. But there were a lot of reasons for me to stay there, a lot of reasons for me to come here. One of the main reasons, I'll just be honest, for me wanting to stay, gave me a lot of consternation in making the decision whether I stayed in Summersville or came here. The Summersville was a 4-day. And I'm just speaking, I'm speaking purely selfishly. I can, talk out both sides of my mouth selfishly as a parent, a father, and an individual who teaches, and, obviously there's always been a lot of great, I've heard a lot of great comments about, teachers make a lot of sacrifices and do all that stuff, and I don't have to repeat all that. It's very true. Lots of hours outside the 35 hours we do. But just speaking from, and I'm sure everybody would say this, if everybody could have a 4-day week wherever they work, but like quality of life really changed for me and my family. At the time, for the first 6 years we lived here in Missouri, originally from Virginia, taught a bunch of school districts over there, ran my own arts academy, was in ministry full-time for a number of years, part-time for over a decade, just a lot of things. But when we moved here, we were living with the cousins on a farm in Pomona, living in an RV, and most of us have at least our own hands or family's hands working somewhere out, with livestock, so working on the farm. And so, and that's part of how we had our keep with our cousins, had a lot of work to do on there, and having the 5 days and then hitting Saturday and having to come and just like barrel through all the chores, running into Sunday, come back Monday, I'm exhausted. And so when they went to a 4-day in Summersville, there's no football, so they're Monday through Thursday there. Having that Friday to really give the time to the projects, fixing the barn, fixing the plumbing, taking care of that pasture, that fence is broken, all that stuff. Having that time to do that really made a difference in my family's life so that I could actually, I spent time with my kids. They were out there doing stuff with me. Their hands were in it. But it made all the difference when, oh, wow, we have a weekend where we can, as a family, we can go to Springfield, just spend time together. We can go to Hahatonka. We can go to, Alley Spring. We can go do all kinds of stuff as a family and then have Sunday for church and for rest. Like, that really made a huge difference in my quality of life and my family. And so, but obviously I'm here. I left a 4-day, so it was high up there for me, but through, not to give my life story, but through prayer and through counsel, like my wife and I decided that this was, for a lot of other reasons, a great move for us. So I'm here whether it's 4-day or 5-day. Like, that's not going to make the decision for me. Oh, I'm going back to Summersville. I'm not doing that. But and I love people there. And again, it was really hard for me to make that decision. A lot of great stuff there. But that is something that I can just speak to, having made that switch from a 5 to a 4-day quality of life. And we're not talking about a 4-day explicitly. We're talking about a hybrid calendar. And just, I have a couple notes when I filled out the survey. I've just got some thoughts that I had on it, just responding to the slideshow that Dr. Spence made. I already talked about, he talked about attracting and retaining best teachers. There's already been talk, I did hear about, Kabul and Liberty and some of the other ones with the 4-day, and how, there's trying to make sure we attract, retain not just qualified, certified teachers, but I can't remember who made the comment. I listened to it on the way over here, but about the next generation coming up. There's a huge shortage everywhere, and that is something that is, if all things are equal between two districts and one's a 5 and one's a 4, a lot of the young people coming out of college are going to pick a 4-day. That's one of the big things they're going to look at. I really liked the comments at the board meeting on the 14th when there was talk about time interrupting without interrupting the educational process is valuable. I think that was really great. I heard an elementary, I think 4th grade teacher was talking about that, where the Mondays aren't going to be idle sitting on our hands. That's days to take care of PD. That's days that we're going to be doing the things that, I'm after school every day, almost every day till 5, just having the room open for students and me trying to get admin done that I really can't get done during my one planning each day. We don't have the time to do it. It's just, and then stuff I take home on the weekends too. Another thought that I had that I shared in the survey is that more federal holidays fall on Mondays than any other day. So those are already days where a lot of places are not operating business, or at least banks and other, government, municipality agencies aren't operating on that day. So it already kind of aligns with things that follow that schedule. Some other thoughts that I had was, there was a lot of talk at the board meeting about what a weekly schedule would look like, and there was talk around keep it blocked, go to traditional schedule, and I'll tell you, it's my 2 cents is it would be good to go to traditional for a variety of reasons, but namely it's like we've talked about having athletics and other things that would draw students, like if Susie has softball Tuesday and Thursday and she's leaving early, there's going to be an entire week that she misses 3rd and 4th block classes in a week. And so that's, if we're moving towards a hybrid calendar, we really have to really consider traditional schedule for the day. So 7 periods or whatever, what have you, for doing that. And I'll tell you, this is the first place I've done block since I was in Virginia. So in Virginia, when I did my student teaching, my first part-time gig that I had at a high school of 2,200 kids, it was block. And there's pros and cons, and I'm not going to take the time now to talk about that necessarily because there's really a lot of pros and cons. Someone already talked about appointments. I have chronic health issues. I have autoimmune disease, and so I have to go and they have to check me and bloodlet me and make sure that my immunosuppressants aren't killing me and things like that. So, tomorrow, I have to take off half the day tomorrow to go do a rheumatology appointment. So having that Monday to schedule those would be really life-changing. Obviously, I got to go eye doctor every year, got to go to the dentist, all that stuff. And also with my kids. I have 6 kids. Some of you have only counted 5. That's because one hasn't been born yet. Baby will be here in March. We don't know if it's a boy or girl. So if you didn't know, now you know. So all those appointments, taking care of those things. Let me scroll through right here. And one last thing I want to say is, I just want to make sure when we're talking about more days or more hours or more time hands-on with kids, we want to make sure we don't make a logical error of scale. So if the argument is just that more days, well, we should be in school 7 days a week. If the argument is just more days, we should be year-round. And if you don't get me started on year-round, I'm actually kind of pro year-round. I am, because I have all the sympathy for that. Like I come from a really big family, really low income most of my life with growing up, and a lot of friends growing up really poor. And the school is a very important touch base. But like we just heard, it is 14 days, which is significant in the life of struggling kids, but 2 days is significant in the life of, honestly, with struggling families. And so I think it's important to have the sympathy and empathy we should be having for that, but make sure we don't make an error of scaling by saying, well, we should just do more. And I will say to the one, I do agree, if our students are students first, they're student athletes. So I agree with the comments about making sure we're balancing well how much time we demand of them and they have to do to participate in sports. But I will make a comment is like sports are seasonal. There are kids that play all the seasons, but it usually is for chunks of time, not for the whole school year that they're demanding all this extra time out of them. So it's just important to kind of weigh and balance all those things as we're thinking about scale. So have the sympathy, have the empathy. We have to take care of our kids in our community, but we have to make sure we don't say more days, because if you really want to argue that, we should be 7 days a week. If we're arguing that having as much touch base as we can, obviously it's not something that we would feasibly consider either, but I'm just saying logically, if you just do the thought experiment for a little bit, that's kind of where that goes to. So anyway, it's just my thoughts as a teacher here. I've done the 4-day, I've done the 5-day, I've done all kinds of different things in 2 different states, and whether just on a, you know, like I said earlier, it's not a for me, because I've been doing this long enough. I've been teaching for 15 years where I have a whole other host of things that are going to make the decision for me. So choosing between 4 and 5 is not as simple for me. But I know with younger out of school, you know, fresh out of college people I've talked to coming out of music in MSU West Plains, some other places, when they're looking, if they're even going to come out this way, which is another topic we can, you know, you could talk about for a long time, trying to recruit out to rural communities. But when they're looking at it, if there's a 4 or 5 and everything else is kind of comparable, base salary, all those things, they're going to use that as a big kind of thing to consider. So that's about all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Next. Is everyone else waiting to be the last one? Well, if not, I would ask the board then, do you have any comments or questions? I really appreciate all of the comments that we've received tonight. As you can tell, we've received them from both ends of the spectrum. And I can assure you that myself, and I know I can speak for the board, that we do put kids first, and doing what's best for our students is at the front of our minds. And I assure you that we will wrestle with this between now and the board meeting in February, where we will make a decision. So, that being said, is there any other comment? Dean?
Thank you all for your service.
Thank you, and thank you for yours. All right, then, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.